Hi, welcome back to my sound booth and chapter 13. I think one thing that separates us as voiceover artists, and maybe even from those who are much more polished and have much more experience, and certainly separates us from AI or digital clones or whatever else is out there, but that even if we screw up, if we think there are flaws in our voices and nuances that make our voice ours, we get to be ourselves. And not that I was ever a big star or, went really far with my acting, but probably the most important advice I ever got, and I think it applies to almost everything we do, from acting coaches and teachers and other actors that were much more accomplished than I am, is to learn to be yourself. And it's a lot harder than most people think it is. Especially when there's a camera on or a microphone or, we put those extra pressures on ourselves. And, this story, Super Ninja, is about a superhero. And, it's a larger than life version of what we wish we could be. And, as I read the story, and it's the same as like when I wrote it, it becomes a reminder to stretch and to reach and to really try to become more than I am. So, if I have any advice that's worthwhile, it would be to be perfectly you. And, you're bound to do it better than anybody else can. And I think it's the one superpower that we get to tap into. Anyway, on to chapter 13, unedited and with all my mistakes and, but mine. Chapter 13. Moving 3 pounds of steel might not seem like much, but when you add the centrifugal force generated by speeds of 100 miles per hour, the resulting forces can deplete even the strongest men in just moments. Shingo was exhausted, but still he pushed. As his energy waned, so did his anger. He would try one more time to express his concerns with his father. As he moved away from the sword, the door burst open, and 3 armed men rushed in behind it. Before the boy could reach for the sword, Garcia sprayed the ceiling with automatic fire. Shingo held his ground, while Mano and Ruiz covered themselves from the rain of exploding concrete and steel. Garcia came to his senses when a shard of shrapnel sliced cleanly across his cheek, and Mano took a ricocheting round in the leg. "¿Qué coño, tío? Maldito idiota!" Garcia wiped at the blood on his cheek. "Vete a la mierda." Howling in pain, Mano limped forward and took it out on the boy, slamming the boy to the ground with the butt of his weapon. Shingo spun as he fell, his outstretched leg knocking the gangster's leg out from under him, and Mano crashed to the cement floor. The others were stunned in disbelief, then burst out laughing. As Mano tried to recover his breath, Garcia stepped forward to kick the boy. Ruiz pulled him back. "Espera, él es bonito." Garcia shivered, trying not to imagine the horror. They'd heard stories of Ruiz cruising the Miami docks and bus stations, taking his entertainment from the young men desperate for shelter or a bite to eat. Un maldito psicopata. A fucking psychopath. "Don't hit his face. Él es mío." Nash was obviously not going to get any rest. Monsters and gunshots and Viet Cong soldiers invaded his dreams, or perhaps he'd entered an alternate dimension where time was as vast and fluid as the ocean roaring outside. He pushed the echoes of his past away, but they roared back with a vengeance. He felt, as much heard, distant gunshots and screams, the roar of the fire, the clash of metal, the rending of flesh. A sound engineer or a physicist could have explained how it was impossible, that though the volume let him know it was distant, the undiminished clarity of each sound wave carried each groan and breath of exertion as if they were in the room with him. And then, much closer and louder, the roar of automatic weapon. A Tech-9, where he could count the steel exploding into the cement at 3,000 rounds per second, the shards of concrete and metal shrapnel whining and ricocheting around the room, the thunk of a gun butt against a skull, the thud of a body falling, and then laughter. He knew it was the drug. He'd had nightmares follow him into his waking hours before, but he never had super hearing, and the monsters were entirely new. Still, more laughter and sounds of a struggle. Fuck. Even hallucinations in alternate dimensions deserve to be investigated. He shimmied back into his wet pants and entered the shadows. So some minor stumbles, and I'll do a version that's edited that I'll release for the audiobook. But, again, sometimes you have to make choices all the time on, am I going to try for an accent? Am I going to be, this is internal monologue. This is the action happening. What is the speed? What is the tone? How loud? All the things that are involved. And, all I can say again is embrace your thoughts and your instincts and embrace who you are so that when somebody listens, they are listening to you. I think that's really important. Anyway, 13 chapters. Slowly getting there, and nothing else to do but do it. On to chapter 14. Thanks.